Hello, welcome to Flory Models. I'm Flory. Good week this week. We've managed to get the Iwo Jima finished, so we've got a little bit of that in the moment. I've had loads of deliveries have come in, which is quite nice. So we've got two reviews for you today. We've got a review on spray boots, and I've got another one, but to be honest, they're a bit big to have up here. Okay, and we've got that, and we've got about compressors as well. I've got a new compressor in. It's a slightly the next model on from the one I've got, so we're going to do a review on that. So a little bit about compressors, a little bit about spray boots, and so on. Great one as well, as I said. Really enjoyed doing something a little bit different. As a lot of you know, I'm not really a ship modeler. In fact, this is only probably the second ship I've done in the last 10 years. And to say I've had a lot of fun with it is really an understatement, because a lot of the techniques that you learn and you make your way through and you sort of perfect as well, put them all to the test with this. So this one was really a case of, recently I've been doing a lot with ink washers, as you know, and using them with different effects and taking them off and putting them on, various things like that. It really sort of culminated in doing this one because I've used ink right the way through this. Yes, it had a clay wash scrub right the way over it, but it's the ink that has given it this stainy, streaky look, and I've used ink literally everywhere, including on the Ospreys. All that is grey paint and ink. So I used neat ink for doing around the windows. It's great because the capillary action zips around, colours it all in, right the way through to the black bars that they have at the front of the wings. That's just all ink and everything else, and to give them obviously weathering and to scrub them in. And you saw earlier we did obviously weathering on the other helicopters, but we certainly got a full deck here. I've just got a few little items still to go on which are drying, to be honest, over there. So I've got here the crane, the support vehicles and various things, and they're just going to go in this little area here, and it's ready for the final reveal and photos, which I'll do after I finish recording this show. As I said, so part 10 will be up today, and obviously that will finish this one off. I thought it was going to be a little bit more, but to be honest, a lot of the things, it took me a long time to do them, but from a filming point of view, it wasn't so bad at all. So really that will finish that one off with some lovely reveal photos, which we'll show you in next week's show. So had a lot of fun with it. I know a lot of people have asked me, is it worth it doing a kit? I can't personally comment because I haven't done many ships. I know a lot of guys who do obviously the Tamiya range 350 kits, things like that, but certainly it's my first kit going through. I can honestly say I couldn't find a single fault with it, but then I don't think you ever will with ship kits because they tend to go together very, very well. It's not like an aircraft one where sometimes you have, you know, misalignment parts, things like that. Ship kits do tend to be pretty solidly done and making your way through. Really, it's just a case of how far you want to go through with the detail. If you want to do it straightforward out of the box, which is what we've really done here, or if you want to go around and add aftermarket parts or a lot of scratch building yourself, we just put the light system in, which I don't know how well you can see. I don't know if the camera can see down in here, but if we spin it around, you might be able to see. I haven't velcroed the battery in yet, but you probably see you've got the red light up at the back, and you can see the green lights on it. But we are all nicely done and everything else, and as I said, I've got the nice on-off switch for turning them off and saving the old battery and everything else. So as I said, that will be up today. If not, it'll be up over the weekend for definite, but certainly that'll be a 10-parter is ready to go. Star Destroyer, I know I get loads of emails about it. I think it's probably the most anticipated kit we're going to do. Yes, it's all here, all the bits are, to be honest, it did have a bath where I've washed off all the release agent off of it and everything else. Trust me, it was a little bit of a getting the water to the right temperature because some resins go soft earlier than others. So I was literally like a baby and I'm dunking my elbow into Great Fred because I didn't want to put these big sheets in there into it, give it a wash with a very soft brush, and then go to pick them up and they come out like a floppy pancake or something like that. So needless to say, but it's all okay. I have videoed a short bit on that as well, so I'll show you about actually washing your kit and everything else before we start. And then next week this will all be cleared out of the way and we are straightforward into doing the Star Destroyer on its own. I'm going to do the Star Destroyer and we're going to get that one done because I want it done before the end of the silver screen SIG, and obviously we've only got really about sort of 6 weeks to get it done. So I really want to push forward for that, get it done, and then we are onto the Hind. I'm going to do a couple of little smaller kits after that. I know a lot of you are saying about what am I doing next. We've got some real good SIGs and group builds going on, so I want to take part in those a little bit. So I'm going to do some little out of the box stuff just to get my mojo back. I find that if you do real big projects, so obviously the Intruder was a massive project, this has been a heavy project. I've got the Star Destroyer, which is going to be a very heavy project to do as well, and then I like to do something where I can just chuck it together, spray it, and it's done. And sort of just gets the mojo back, and that way you don't get buried into doing heavy duty, lots of aftermarket like photo etch stuff like we've had on here, and weathering and doing little aircraft. You can really have a lot of fun with it. So that is the plan with that one anyway. Photo builds up on the site. I had a question about that. We'll do the question and answers a little bit later on in the show, but Marcus Jellyman is back with a bang, and he has started doing his vegan, if you're in the forum you'll know he started it last year, then he sort of had a year off, and he's back again now, and so that is up onto the main site as well as everybody else. And so there's some questions about that, and I'll fill you in a little bit later on. So anyway, we're going to start off with compressors. As you know, I do teaching of airbrushing here now and everything else. One of the things I did learn very quickly is if you got 4 people all using my 2 compressors, it wasn't quite enough. They used to drain down a little bit. So I bought in a bigger 3rd compressor. So let's have a look. Welcome to Flory Models, I'm Flory, something a little bit different today. Today we're going to talk about compressors. Now, I've got 3 compressors here, starting off with pretty much your basic one, mid-range and high-end. And we're going to put them on test as well and see what we do. Now, there is a little bit of a history lesson here at the same time. This particular guy at the front here, I have had now for 10 to 15 years, somewhere between there. It's old favourite, it's a Ripmax mini compressor. You can buy it in different flavours, it's different colours, it's rebranded and everybody else, okay? This is an old one. It doesn't come with a start-stop facility, which means it turns itself on and off when you use it. Basically, you've got your on here, and you get an idea for the noise. Close the valve. Okay, you get a small regulator on it, but nothing you get excited over. It's got a moisture trap, and it's got everything you would actually need. Now, I use this for all my commission works, as I said, for the best part of 10 years. Never had a problem with it. The only thing that does go, you have to watch out for, is the bearings, okay, from the piston, which goes up and down in here. When those go, it gets extremely noisy, it rattles and gets, pretty much unbearable within the noise. Performance-wise, it does seem to keep going. You take it down to your local bearing place, it cost me £5 and it's job done. And to be honest, the bearings that it's had in there went on for another 7 years, okay? But within 3 years, I'd worn out the bearings of it, but it didn't take too much. But as this thing comes up to pressure, which it's struggling now in these days to get up to 25 psi, okay, when it's up, what will happen is it won't turn itself off, it just then vents and bleeds air. What it does do is get a little bit quieter. The other thing as well, this is running on a hardwood surface. If you run it on a sheet of carpet, some foam, things like that, it's a lot quieter, so obviously you pick it up. But that's about the noise. And as you can see, we've got it going here and it's not too bad. And we're getting up to the lofty heights now of almost 40 psi. And to be honest, it's the first time I've run this compressor in probably about 2 years. It's my backup compressor, and when I go out and about, I take it with me. Hence, this one does have a little bit overkill when it comes to lineage. I've got a quick release on the end here, and I've got around about 20 feet. Okay, but there we go. So it's obviously having to pump all that air up, 20 feet of hose as well. But now it's coming up about 42 psi. And when this was new, it could reach around about 50 psi. It says max pressure 50 psi. I think that's a little bit generous. It was always more like 45 psi, but it's up there now, and it's good to go. Okay, one of those nowadays you can buy them still, and they're around about the £125 mark, something like that. Next up we got here, now this is my personal favourite and the one that I tell everybody to buy. Okay, this here is the Sparmax, although it doesn't have it written on it. Okay, this is the 610, okay? The actual full spec of it is we write it down here, it's called the TC610H. It's got 2.5 litre tank on it. And obviously you've got your pump up here, comes down, got a moisture trap, it's got a gauge on it and everything else like that. Okay, I've had this now for, as you say, since it replaced that one. I've probably been using it for 5 years now. It's worked, it's brilliant. It's got an auto stop and start, so when you turn it on, switches at the back, it's up to pressure. If we release a bit of air, as you can hear, it's a lot more noisy. But again, you stand on a little bit of carpet, that's what you hear. Great thing is, as you can hear, it's got an auto stop at start. It gets up to 60 psi, okay, and that's all it took to get up there. No problem at all. With this one, same thing again. This is the one you see on film all the time. It's got a braided hose onto this one, and away we go. It's a great bit of kit. This particular one will set you back £168. Don't forget, Flory members, you get the discount of 10% on this and the next model that you'll see. So really that gets you down to £151. So 150 quid gets you a great compressor, auto stop and start. This is the one that you hear in all of my videos and everything else. As I said, I never touch it. It's absolutely fine. It's got a steel braided cable in here which runs from a single piston at the top. It's an oil-free system. It comes down, collects in the tank, and then comes off of here. You have basically two outlets. You've got another outlet here if you wanted to run two off of it, and away you go like that. As I said, nice piece of kit. The next one up, okay, which is the next one that we've got here, this is called the 620, okay. You might notice it's slightly different. We've got the actual moisture trap and the regulator up here at the top. You've also got two external ports. What happens if I take this off? No, we're okay. But you have two externals up here, so you can actually have two airbrushes running at once. Hence you've got here, which I've got them over here, I haven't fitted them to it. But you end up with two little clips here, and these guys will sit in, no doubt, like this. Got little rubber feet, and you've got a stand for two airbrushes. You've also can see, we've got down here at the front, we've got a pressure gauge, but also we've got a regulator pressure gauge separate to the actual regulator itself, that gives us our pressure just here. So if we crank into our pressure, we can dial in whatever pressure we want. And to be honest, what I tend to do is run them almost maximum, and I have a Mac valve on the end of my little hose here, and that's how I dial in my air pressure. I don't tend to do it so much on the regulator. Okay, this one again, if I let a bit of air out, now the big thing you might notice, it's a little bit quieter. Now I can't be 100% here, because don't forget this one's 5 years old, the bearings might be a little bit more worn and everything else, but this one is certainly a little bit quieter. The big difference is, and I don't know how well you actually see this, but the motor, when you look at the size difference, is a lot bigger. This is because this has twin pistons. You've basically got two motors, one behind the other, that fill up the tank, okay? So if you're doing a lot of airbrushing, if you've got a situation where perhaps you're running 2 or 3 airbrushes at the same time, you're going to need something with a little bit more oomph to keep that tank filled up as you're depleting it, as you're pressing your actual thing. So what I'm going to do now really is just do a quick test. Couple of things I'm going to do. First of all, I'm going to turn them both off. So this one has the on-off switch at the back up there. This one has it one on the side, so they're both off. What I'm going to do now is empty the air from both completely out. Which is good practice to do every now and again. Completely empty the tank from these, because what happens is the moisture trap have got any air in them that it will let all that moisture out, okay? And what you'll do with these are not spring loaded, so actually once they're up, they stay up and will vent the tank and completely let it off. What you need to do now is just pull them down just a little bit, because sometimes when you turn them on, they don't actually click down and they just release air just like that. So what we're going to do is fire them both up at the same time, okay? And we're going to see if the twin one is any quicker than the single. Now they've both got the same 2.5 litre air tank in these, so in theory the twin one should be twice as fast as the single. Okay, 40 psi. 40 psi. Coming up on 60. Remember they cut out at 60 psi. That one's off. The twin one still going. Still going, off. Now, okay, you would think, being a twin piston, it would pump twice as much air and be twice as fast, okay? Now that's not just a fluke, it's happened to me before when I was testing it earlier, so I can't work out. So I'm assuming the actual pistons themselves are pumping slower on the twin one than they are on the single. So from the point of view of refilling this tank, because they're both 2.5 litre, apparently the 610 is quicker. Now, it may be they use different motors now and everything else. Don't forget this one's 5 years old. This one is brand new, turned up yesterday, okay? So from a test point of view, it doesn't seem to make much difference to pay extra, because the 620 is a whopping £192 this one. Remember, with your discount for Flory members, it works out 172. The nice things about obviously this new one is it's a little bit quieter. As I say, it just seems to be a little bit quieter. You can run 2 airbrushes off of it, so you've got 2 ports here at the front if you just want to plug them straight in the front. You have got the regulator as well at the top instead of it being down the side here. You have a tank pressure gauge and a regulator pressure gauge, where obviously this one here I can only see what the actual regulator is doing and not what the tank is doing. The same way as on the old one, to be honest. We have a tank gauge back here that's showing us holding 43 psi, and we've got one at the front showing, because obviously the regulator's wide open, showing us there that we're at 43 psi as well. So anyway, that is the basic run through of the 3. They're all going to do the same thing. They all hold a good amount of air. This one here, to be honest, is a 5 litre. It's got a bigger tank than these 2.5 litre ones. Really, really good. It was great. The only thing is, it doesn't have an auto stop and start, so quite frankly, it's a bit of a pain having to keep turning it on and off. Okay. But that said, as long as your air compressor has a tank, so you want some nice tank, preferably over a litre tank, okay, then that'll be great, because you've got a nice solid amount of airflow always coming through your airbrush. Perhaps if you've got some of the older diaphragm ones, the ones that look just like this one at the top that don't have a tank, obviously every time you press the trigger, the airflow depletes and then it has to start up and it starts going along. Sometimes they find it a little bit hard keeping up with the amount of air you want, especially if you're doing a big project and you're laying down a lot of paint at high air pressure. To try and keep up can be a little bit of a problem. So there we go. I'm not going to say go out and buy which one to buy, but it does seem a bit funny how the old 610 here can actually beat the 620 in a race from obviously empty to full up. This is a twin piston one, but as I said, the technicals are, I assume the pistons are running slower, the motors are running slightly slower, but obviously because there's 2 of them. Yeah, slightly different. The design's different. This one's got an on-off switches in a box on the side, where this one is directly on top of the motor and things like that. But generally, this port here at the top, this one has one as well, but it's on the back piston coming down and everything else. Let me turn this one around. You can see this one here, we have a cable going down, filling up the tank. We have one at the front going down, filling up the tank. This one here is obviously the pressure sensor for the on-off switch, which runs up here and is situated here in the back. Generally though, from a noise point of view, we have to let some air out. This is your noise level, so quite frankly, if it's in a cupboard or is being held up similar to that, it's quite quiet. It's not too noisy at all. It's got nice sort of rubber feet on there which absorb the vibration, so it's not vibrating the desk, nothing's running off everywhere. But the 610, if you listen to that rate, the motor's running a lot quicker, and I think that's what it is. The motor's running quicker, it's noisier. So if you're looking for a quieter compressor, I would say go with the 620, certainly over the 610, something else like that. Also this one, because it's running a little bit slower, I don't think it'll get quite as hot, although heat, I have never had a problem with it. So there we go, this is the 610, a little bit smaller, this is the 620, as I say, the only difference really, this one's twin ports, got 2 pistons, this is only 1 piston, runs a little bit quicker. One thing I do want to talk to you about is compressor maintenance. Now, maintenance is, these are oil free, so you don't have to put oil in them, you don't have to do all the usual sort of horrible things you do perhaps with, you know, industrial compressors or certainly automotive ones, alright? The only thing you can do is neglect them. Now, you go out and you clean out your airbrush, okay, you probably take really good care of it and you put it away. Your compressor, you probably unplug and just leave it. I'm just the same. Yes, I never cleaned this one out. I did a quick test before I started recording this and was quite surprised what came out the bottom of my compressor, and I think you will be as well. So what we're going to do is show you about moisture traps. Obviously cleaning out we've covered. Literally you have a button on the end, or this one's got a twist. You do it and it will let out any water that has built up and been caught in the moisture trap. What that doesn't do is clean out the moisture that is in your tank. Now, depending where you live in the world, especially if you've got big differences between hot and cold, these can actually get filled up with quite a lot of water. So what we're going to do is just show you on this one. So first off, what we're going to need is quite a lot of this, because this can be absolutely a very messy job. So as I said, it's a little bit tricky with all the camera angles, but down here you should have a little tap. There's a hole in the middle of it that will release it. This is a emergency pressure valve release, okay, so it will release pressure if it over pressurizes, i.e. if the on-off doesn't stop, it stops it blowing up. But what it will do is allow you to release what's horrible in here. So you release it slowly, and as you can see, there is lots coming out of this. So I'm hoping you can see this down here. And as you turn the tap, obviously have a bit of air in there to help push it out, but what we've got is lots and lots and lots and more than I thought we had, because to be honest I got quite a lot out of this earlier. Come on, it's still coming out. Right, hang out, maybe it. So we'll tighten it back up. It killed me. So, as you can see, and I've put my thing in it now, we need a little bit more. I've just emptied out this lot. Clean off my feet. Clean off under here because we've been splattered. Now here you go, and remember this is plenty, the stronger soaker upper. But there we go guys, that is why we empty out our thing, and as you can see, you see the water coming out the bottom of this. This is because the plenty is doing its job, but what you've got here, this is just water coming out the bottom that's clean. I'm sorry I've only got the one angle and I don't have a cameraman today. So, but as you can see, it's all trapped in here. So this literally is rust, sludge, that is sitting at the bottom of your compressor tank. Covered now, okay? And what that's gonna do is obviously, one, it's gonna affect your performance. You've got water, obviously the water being compressed and everything else, okay, can affect your readings on your gauges and everything else like that. Also, that water, if it suddenly makes its way up to the port which is going to go to your moisture trap, it can flood your moisture trap completely, and I have had it happen to me. If you have a emergency decompression, shall we say, and something goes wrong, and suddenly perhaps your airline splits or something like that, immediately it will suck everything out of the tank because it can get out very, very quickly, and you can end up spraying your entire model in that, which is never going to be a good thing. So it is worth, he says, not doing it ever himself apart from today, which is quite good because it shows you guys. But compressor maintenance, it's well worth getting it up, turning it over, take it outside, and then undoing it and going through. To be honest, I did it to this one when it had the new set of bearings after about 3 years, and I was actually getting out chunks of rust. So you do have to wonder about the actual internals, the integrity about them. Obviously it's rusting away, it's going to, obviously the walls will thin out over time, so if you've got a very old one of these lying around and that's got water in it, it could rust and give you loads of problems. But basically if you just tip it up, empty it every couple of months really, get most of it all out, then you'll find it will run a lot nicer. I don't know if it's any quieter. Take some out, turn him back on. Not really, but a lot of this is vibration. If you pick it up, and to be honest, I have it in my cupboard, the one behind me, it's actually standing on about 3 sheets of carpet, and there's foam in between the carpet to absorb the vibration. Because obviously if you've got it on a worktop and it's vibrating, it's going to cause lots of problems and things like that. So there we go, that's just a brief rundown of compressors, how they work and everything else like that. Just remember, empty them out once in a while. Okay, so there you go, that's all about sort of compressors and everything else. As I say, I've been using the new one now. The big difference is when obviously I recorded that at the beginning of the week, using it, I think the compressor, because it's twin piston, this is the big thing I'm trying to get over. The new one, which is, I'm looking at the box of it over there, it's the TC260, it's twin pistons, they run slower, okay? It makes it very much quieter. For instance, he says, grabbing himself a brush, I just let the air out of here. When you hear it fire up from over there, I'm remembering which one we got plugged in, Always the way, you've got a full tank of air. But hopefully, I don't know if you can hear that, but that's the new one. So from a noise point of view, that's exactly the same setup as the old one was in. And you can hardly hear it, and that is the beauty about it. The pistons run a lot slower. Okay, the actual motor is a lot slower, so the pistons are doing it. So they come up to pressure the same, but certainly using it over this week, I think I've worn it in a little bit and sort of, you know, with the pistons and getting them all right, because it does tend to be a bit faster than when I was doing it in the testing. To be honest, when I did the testing, I'd only used it once just to have a go at it to make sure it's okay, and I hadn't actually used it, you know, properly, and it hadn't been running for a couple of hours and everything else. I think it's a little bit quicker now than the 610, if I'm honest, but not enough. So my advice to anybody buying them is, if you want a slightly quieter compressor, pay the extra because it is a little bit quieter. But if you're just going to be using it for your normal hobbying and everything else with one airbrush coming off it at a time, then certainly I think you probably don't need to spend the extra. I'll go with the 610, the one that I've had for donkey's years. Got the 620 now, but you know, I'll still use the 610 on my other spray positions anyway. So there we go, that's spray booze, and obviously that gunk comes out the bottom. It's not nice, you know, it is worth doing it, and I am my own worst critic, as you all know, and I never do as I say, but it is that thing, after when you see it, you'll suddenly think, I really ought to do mine. So everybody, I want you to go out this weekend, right, and empty out in the garden or down your drain or wherever, and see what comes out of it, because you will be amazed the crap that falls out the bottom of these, and it isn't any good for your compressor, having all that water flooding, you know, slopping around in there. And as I said, I was bad. You shouldn't really do it the way I was showing you of swinging it around, because if it does get up into the actual moisture trap, it will flood your moisture trap, and it only does so much. It's designed for, as I say, moisture. It's not designed for water going in there. If water gets in your moisture trap, it's going to play havoc with it, because it will flood it, or just then come out and it's going to be completely useless. So just let it out gently. I was doing it a bit sort of over the top of the camera, but do it more gently than I was certainly showing, because when I've looked back at that footage, I'm thinking, gosh, shouldn't do it like that. Anyway, right, next up, John Smith. We've all seen his work. He's done some fantastic work on the site recently. So let's have a look around his man cave.
My name is John Smith. I live in the city of Eugene in the state of Oregon, which is in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. Pretty mild climate here. Lots of rain, just like you guys have in the UK. And I want to take this opportunity to show you a little bit about my man cave, or my work area. I've been involved in Flory models now for about 6 months, although signed up for much longer. Actually, I've been out of the hobby effectively for about 20 years, and I'm just now getting back involved with a vengeance, working real hard. I started off on Flory with the fine structure Mustang, following Ross Armstrong's build, and accompanied it by building the Tamiya 132nd Mustang Blondie. Both of those can be seen in the air gallery, and currently I'm working on the fine structure Zero in the team build area, and its sister ship, the Tamiya Zero, in the Stars of the Silver Screen group build area. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing, and I'd like to give you a sense of where I work and how I do what I do. So let's go from there. Okay, let's start off by working our way into the workroom. I really shouldn't call this a man cave, because here on the right is really my wife's work area. She does work in fused glass, and here's her work desk, and over there in the shiny silver top you can see her kiln. But this area over here on the left is mine, and so let's go through that a little bit, step by step. Starting on the left, we've got our little speaker for some music, and some wipes for cleaning our glasses, and some miscellaneous towels. This cabinet here holds a lot of my research data by aircraft, although to be perfectly honest, my aftermarket materials are completely out of order and disorganized, and I really need to do an inventory on them badly. Next up, here on this rack we have some rather seldom used items on the top. Coming on down, here we have some Flory washes and pigments, some oil pigments, and some tools for working with photo etch, some Dymo tape for scribing, some Hold'em tools. Here's where I keep my putties in this compartment here. Sanding sticks and materials kind of live all over the place a little bit, so they're all around here. And then down on the bottom, here's some drill bits over in the corner, and some pin vices, holding tools, and cutting tools. You can see the workbench is pretty busy right now, working on the 1/32 scale 0 for the Stars of the Silver Screen group build. And I've got that organized out here just about as well as I can. Try to keep my paints that I'm working with at the time and my glues in a common area. This little tool back here, this Dremel cordless, is a wonderful little device for using for drilling holes, and the cullet exactly matches the size of those carbide drill tips. They're the markers I use for color coding my instructions and my parts on the sprue. My favorite CMK debonder, some whiteout. Micro brushes I think I've talked about in some of my builds are the little green guys here, and I use those for debonder. I use them for mixing paints. I use them for all manner of things. If you buy them through a hobby source, they're relatively expensive, but if you buy them through Amazon.com or Amazon.co.uk on your side of the pond, they're probably considerably less expensive if you buy them, as I do, as dental aids or dental instruments. And the multiple Coke cans up here are what I use to dispose of them so that they don't mess up the garbage cans. Lots and lots of paint brushes. Let me pan back a little bit here, and you can see the amount of light I put on the workbench. That's just critical for me to work with, and finding good lights and good lighting is very difficult, and I was fortunate to find these three for this bench here. The little tray I keep my most used tools in right here. My binocular glasses are indispensable. You can see some Edward photo etch here sitting, waiting to be used. Some of it is being used. On the 0, I'm kind of trying to select what to use best to give the most value added for the least amount of pain. Working our way further down the workbench here, this center section is really for electronics, watch repair, and the like. The electronics is not general electronics. I'm not a ham radio operator or anything of that nature. What I am doing is a lot of LED work. I really love Star Trek and science fiction models, and I'm planning on doing some work on lighting those things up. So this is sort of an accumulation of tools, equipment, and parts to be starting to work on that. One of the items that I'll be starting very soon is the NX-01 Enterprise from the TV series, and I plan to do that fully lighted and illuminated, and this is where that gear is. Finally, I also work on wooden ship models, and the tools and so forth for that are located on this end of the bench. I have a wooden ship model in the Sea Gallery, a 1/48 scale armed Virginia sloop, and you can spend an awful lot of time building a wooden ship model, a lot more time than I really have remaining in my life for the number of models I have in that part of my stash. And my dream model for wooden model shipbuilding is the HMS Victory by Caldercraft. So down here in a little piece of my stash, you can see the HMS Victory waiting to be built. It's quite large, quite heavy. And above that, the Iwo Jima, another dream project, and a 32nd scale F-117, as well as a 48 scale, just like the one that Phil built. Those will be coming together. In addition, here on the workbench, I thought I'd practice some of those black techniques that Phil showed us on these 1/44 scale Dragon and Cyber Hobby kits. The X15, the U2R, the TR-1A, which is essentially the same aircraft in a research version with slipper tanks on it. And finally, a resin kit of the X-15D, which was a hypothetical model, or a hypothetical aircraft which never came to fruition, but which holds a lot of interest for me because the X-15 is one of my favorite airplanes. At this point, we're going to move back on down the bench again, and I'm going to take you in a different room because, as you can see, there's no airbrushing space in here. The reason there's no airbrushing space in here is because there's no good way to exhaust it. What's above here in the ceiling of the roof it goes directly to the roof tiles, and boring through the exterior of the house is not something that my wife was real wild about. So after some negotiation, we finally arrived at a solution. We had a small room right down here next to the workroom that was being used as a library when we lived in this house before, and we have converted it now to modeling. And so this is the airbrush setup. Those gray tubes in the background attach to the double booth setup here and then exhaust out the side of the window, and the ever handy duct tape sealed the edge of the window as it pushes up against the exhaust and holds it in place. I can get quite a large model in here, as you can see, and right now I've got my Iwata HPCS airbrush there on the left, and a Harder and Steenbeck Infinity 2+1 on the right. Station for spraying out stuff, Windex cleaner, which is an awful lot cheaper than what you can buy in the box. Pretty standard compressor sitting here on the floor. Small work area over here to mask and deal with some objects after they've been painted. These were a nifty find, these little alligator clips on stone stands. I wish I could find some more of them because they're awfully nice to use for airbrushing. But something else that works almost as well are the cocktail sticks with alligator clips mounted on them. And you notice here that I've used some frog tape to bind around the bottom of them just to keep paint off of the alligator clip itself. It kind of helps things stay a little neater and cleaner. These are the paints I'm using on the Zero builds, and I've got them here just to keep them separated from the other. As you'll see in a moment, things could get pretty complicated if I didn't do it. I mostly use acrylics. I seldom use difficult solvents in any way. But when I do, for example, when I use All-Clad, I use this full safety-approved regulator mask. And it does an excellent job of keeping it out of my lungs, and the exhaust system on the airbrush booths over here do an excellent job of keeping it out of the house. So all in all, the system works pretty well. Here to our left, let me back up a little bit, is the major paint and solvent and supply area. On the top here you can see some All-Clad paints. Some rubbing alcohol, some Futures, some Windex, some Simple Green, some other things that are used for cleaning the airbrushes. Here's some primers down here on the right, some India ink, some other solvents, including the really nasty MEK, mineral spirits, Mr. Color thinner, Some things that I use very seldom over here on the left. A shelf further down, we have some Model Master paints in their own group. These are things I've accumulated over many years. Even when I was not active in the hobby, I was still getting stuff as if I were actually going to work. That didn't actually happen, but it's happening now, so the stuff is being used. And then some masking tape and some items that I use frequently when I'm doing painting. Another level down below, and you can see I have a set of Vallejo Model Air and Model Color, and some individual ones that I've bought in between, as well as a few miscellaneous items. Some supplies down here, some rags for cleanup, a little Harder and Steenbeck case that I use to keep my airbrush tools in, a box of nitrile gloves, and lots of trash cans. To finish this tour off, let me just show that I do keep my research material for books in this same room, and has ship modeling. There's actually some home repair over there, a little bit of it anyway, and lots of aircraft. I'm really partial to the modeler's data files from SAMI. I think those are great products, and I've been getting those as they come along. I've got a lot of World War I models waiting in the stash, and so I've been gathering some windsock things as well. I would show you my stash, but actually my stash takes up a storage unit. Here's the view out my window, by the way, or my backyard. It's kind of pleasant. I'll just show you that for a moment while I talk about my stash. My stash has about 400 to 500 models in it, which is obscene. There's no way I'll ever build that in my lifetime. I've just accumulated them over the years, to the chagrin of my wife, who is very good-natured about all this. And I'm sure I will be selling a lot of them at some point and moving on, so some of you may have an opportunity to take advantage of this. Although I'm not doing any pitch here for that, please, Phil, don't misunderstand me. And but it does occupy a storage unit, which is about a 5-minute drive away from here. So when I need to go get a model, I need to go find it in the storage unit. I do keep it organized. There is a website called myhobbyinfo.com, which is a free database of models that you can categorize your stash models in according to value, the date you got them, has cover photos. It's a wonderful way to organize what you've got, and I'll be doing the same thing with my aftermarket accessories as well shortly. Well, anyway, that's the end of the grand tour. I certainly hope you've enjoyed it, and I know that a lot of you would feel really privileged to have a setup like this. I know I do. I've never had anything like this for modeling in my whole life, and this only happened in the last 6 months, so I'm a very lucky guy, and a very lucky guy to have a wife who supports them the way that my wife does in this hobby. And I hope to be seeing a lot more of your spaces and hearing a lot more from all of you on Flory models, and I wish you all a good day. Thank you very much. Bye.
Well done, John. Lovely stuff. Got a fantastic setup and everything else, and we really do look forward to your work, which we will be having up on the site on Monday. It will be on the main site, some more of your work on Monday. So well done to him. Okay, questions and answers. Only got a couple for you this week, so we're running really tight on time. How do I get my work on the main site? Okay, now this is from Don. Don, you're not actually a member, because I've checked. It's all I do is I take work from the forum. You have to imagine we've got, I don't know, whatever it is now, a couple of thousand members in the forum, and they do some fantastic work, and you know, I tend to take those ones which are obviously interesting, but also very well written, laid out, clear photos, and I take them out and ask their permission, and then usually everyone's fine with it, and then we host the images and everything for you, and then we can pop them out onto the main site for the world to see, because obviously it's free access to all those areas. So if you haven't looked, have a look around our photo builds, and you can see them like that. But you do have to be a member, and I normally ask the people if they can. Usually it's the team as well, the team builds I tend to put out there, but normally the criteria is for members, if you're thinking about how do I get my work out there, first of all, when you're taking your photos, clear up the background. Now, I'm not saying you have to put it into a photo area and have a nice background and all the rest of it. Not worried about that, because doing it on your bench is absolutely fine, but just clear a bit of a space around so you declutter, and also explain it. You know, really that's what it is. I take the ones which either are something a little bit different, which people haven't seen before, or certainly from the point of view of they're very well written and explain exactly how they're doing it. So it's a lot more in depth than say a magazine, for instance, because a magazine you're limited to so many pages, so many words. Obviously there's no limit on these, so I tend to take you say members' work, which I think that's very well written, you know, and I put it out and they explain, especially in areas I don't do, because you know, obviously like ship modelling, all right, I've done this one, but normally I don't. So Stefan's Bismarck to me is a complete masterpiece and makes this look like a piece of crap, quite frankly, compared to his. Okay, but he explains how he's doing it in very nice, clear, clean photographs describing with his words. And don't forget, our Stefan, he's not a natural English speaker or writer and everything else, but as I said, he does a fantastic job with it and he explains it, and that is the whole point to it, of actually showing it out and everything else. And there's the compressor now. How quiet's that? Actually, I can feel it through the floor more than I can hear it. More to the point is, why is it coming on and off? It's because I've got a slight leak on my air hose. Anyway, so that's that one. So there you go, Don. Basically, members only, and I take them from there. So easy enough. Next one up from Mike. You had your members meet this week. True. And why don't you put the videos up anymore? Or will you be putting the videos up, I should say, he says. The guys who are here know what it's like. We tend to talk crap, basically. We do some good stuff, don't get me wrong, but we tend to waffle on about rubbish and in general, and to try and to edit it would be a massive nightmare. And by the time I've edited, you know, for instance, we all meet here in the studio, usually around about 5:30, 6 on a Sunday night. And I think it went on to 11 o'clock, 11:30, actually, last Sunday, by the time the last guys left. Shannon, blame you. But anyway, so it is that thing of I would like to, but it's just I would have to then sit down and do 4 hours of editing of it, which means it's probably about 8 hours. You usually double whatever you recorded, just double it to 8. So that's 8 hours. That's a day out of my life to put it together and everything else. I know you guys want to see it, so what I might do it is a live stream one day, and we'll do it like that. So there we go. Okay, next up, spray booths. Okay, so you got your airbrush and you've done a lot of research, spent quite a bit of money on your airbrush and got the type of thing you want. You've got your compressor, okay, and everything's going well and you're spraying and having no problem at all. Next thing really, if you're going to get serious about this, is some type of spray booth. Okay, now, as you can see behind me, I've got my one here. Now this is a Graphic Air 300D. It's a 100-watt motor in it. Obviously you've got 2-stage filter, you've got an early stage and a carbon filter behind it. And everything else, and you've got a nice exhaust. In my case, it goes up and out and everything else, and it's got pretty good draw on it. So, you know, little thing, if I just turn it on, you can see you do it like this, and it will hold a towel. And then obviously, if you can tell how good the draw is by making it smaller. Okay, and smaller. Okay, it's having a little bit of trouble with a square. There we go, it's holding a square just like that. Not too noisy either. You know, you've probably heard me spray 1,000 times before. Slight drawback to these things is cost. Okay, so you're thinking, you know, 100, you know, anywhere really between 50 and 150 pound for an airbrush. Compressor, again, anywhere between 100 and 200 pound for a decent compressor like this. Okay, and then your spray booth, that one over there is almost a whopping 300 pounds now. It's basically around about 290 pounds. So they are quite a bit of money. And at this point, you can probably take quite a few shortcuts. So you might think, okay, well, I don't really need a spray booth, okay? I can just use a mask, have the window open and everything else like that, which, don't get me wrong, is absolutely fine, okay? As long as you do wear your mask and you do have a window open, you'll be absolutely great like that. Trouble is, though, you get a lot of dust and dirt and everything else goes around. And certainly a dust can be a real big factor if you're in a, you know, a room like this, or if you're at home and you're doing it in the kitchen, your dining room, you will go around and start, you know, and even I get it in here, with that running quite a lot of dust. So you can keep a lot of that down by a good spray booth. Now, as I said, trouble with that one is you're looking around about £300, and that is a lot of money. Now, there is other ones out there, let's face it, there's lots of Chinese ones on eBay, which range from anywhere from around about £60 to £100. The drawback to those is, and to be honest, I have had them here for testing, is that, you know, they've got no real oomph to them. They're great if you're spraying directly into it, okay, and then it vents out. But if you're doing something a little bit larger, like we've been doing quite large ships recently and things like that, you tend to be back a bit further, you're spraying, it hasn't got enough pull to be able to pull all those particles towards it and then out the way and everything else like that. And really that's down to motor size. Most of the Chinese ones have motors ranging anywhere from 10 to 25 watt motors. Now, what I want to speak to you about, so if we just move these out of the way a second, is a new thing I've been looking into, which is one of these. Now, this here, oops, wait, get him to come around, is aircon. Now this is actually Harder and Steenbeck don't make them, but they supply them, so we're assuming they come from another third party. As you can see, this is all metal construction, unlike the cheap Chinese ones. And the other thing as well, you notice this one has a very large 38 watt fan in the back and everything else. It's quite nice because it is all fold down. You can unscrew these and it all folds flat and goes away. It doesn't take up much room, so if you do want to do it in your dining room table, you can go away like that. The only thing it doesn't have is an exhaust system coming off of these to go off. Now you could buy one and put one of these on and then vent it out of a window. This does have a two-stage filter system though, where you've actually got, you've actually got a system in here where you have normal catch one. This will catch your larger particles and everything else like that, and then in behind it we have a carbon filter which is very, very tight knit, okay, so that will stop all the nasties and catch everything else in there. As we know, carbon filters been around and nuclear suits and everything are made of them, so they've got to be quite good. It's a very tight weave. It's not like, even the weave on that one's quite big and everything else to catch those first stage bigger particles coming in. This one is a lot tighter. It's a lot more, you know, dense material for catching all the stuff. Because it's dense though, don't think it doesn't draw through very, very well, because it does. So let me just grab our plug here and I'll plug him in. Okay, and fire him up. As you can hear, a little bit more noisy perhaps than the other one, but I think that's a lot to do with the fact that it hasn't got a vent hose going up and out, because obviously a lot of this noise is going that way. Alright, usual thing though, if you do a test, we just do it in half. It does have a lot of pull. Now I know this one is probably, you know, 2/3 smaller or 1/3 smaller than the one over there, so obviously it's mass area, but this one's only got quite a small fan in it compared. That's 100 watt in that one over there. This one's only 38, okay, but certainly it has amazing draw. This will hold pretty much, being clever now because I've never tried it this small, and I know for a fact that one over there won't do this. So I'll put it down. Okay, perhaps that's a little optimistic, but it's got enough pull there to hold quite a heavy object just like this, and it's not getting caught on the texture. It literally is just like that. Okay, let me just flick that off. Okay, now one of these, he says, grabbing his little bit of paper, it's £184. Okay, so we're under the 200, and don't forget, members, you'll get the discount on this one, which takes you up to £165 for it, and away you go. Now, you know, you might be thinking, still quite a lot of money, but I think, as I say, this one's full metal construction. It's decent, thick acrylic on it and everything else like that. I'm pretty sure it's going to last, and to be honest with you, these are the spray booths that I'm using now for here when we're teaching. We have them all set up around the bench. We have 3 on the go here, and that's exactly what we're using. The other thing you can do with it, which is very, very clever, is if you unplug this end like this, okay, and we just spin this round, we grab a screwdriver, just remove these two little screws. Okay. So as you can imagine, if you want to fold it up, you just undo the two screws. Okay, and then this top one actually folds down in front and goes away, and these two you just put on top, so it doesn't take up any room at all. Okay, so we have it like this. All right, and then you can do this. You grab your other unit. Okay, let me just get these correct. Pop these in, push together. We have a little bit of plastic, just like this. Pop him in, turn him on, and now we have two. One power feed going in, one there, and one there. So now what this means is, just turn them off, you can get a bigger model in it. So certainly for bigger stuff that I've been doing recently, the trouble is this one over here, you've only got a catchment area of about this, okay, tiny bit more, but this one's got a lot more. Now you can carry on. You can actually sort of, daisy chain 10 units up to one power supply by doing this. So 10 units, I think that'll probably do most of my bench just down here. Okay, so you could have a huge spray area to do it. Certainly things like we've been working on the Iwo Jima recently, that will fit in here. Instead of me holding it away and spraying down, this will catch a lot more in it. So there's a lot of pros and cons against it. Okay, it's never going to replace a big semi-industrial, certainly professional spray booth, certainly like the Graphic Air one, but at half the cost, I think it's probably worth its money, no problem at all. So from my point of view, that's why I've decided to use them here in the studio and using them for doing corsets, because each person has one in front of them. As I say, we can get 3 round here, 4 at a push. Okay, everybody has their own little spray booth, and certainly it filters everything. Okay, the downside is it doesn't come with the extraction hose. I would like to have seen that one, it would have really made it. And also make sure you have it sent with an EU plug adapter, because it comes with an EU plug. You'll need to put a UK one on it if you're in the UK. Now, rest of the world, I'm not totally sure on this, but don't be fooled by thinking this is the cheap plastic one that's around and you get on eBay. This is certainly a lot more. This is a 38 watt power unit on this one. They do a smaller one, which is a 17 watt, I do believe it's 17, supply. I don't think that will be any good, if I'm honest. I can't imagine the draw from it, because it's going to be half of what these are drawing. I think really the 38 watt is what you need, and for an extra £20, I certainly think it's well worth the extra little bit of money and investment into this. But the way you can daisy chain these together, you can start out with one, okay, and then buy another one, and then put them together, and then you've got something bigger than what we've got behind me. Certainly will draw as much, because you've got 2 lots of 38 now in there as well, so it's coming up on par to what the other one does as well. So a lot better. The other thing as well, from a cost point of view, especially if you're starting out, is filter costs. Now, always change your filter. I change mine roughly, I would say, every sort of 6 to 8 weeks. Okay, my filter. I do go through them a lot. As you know, I do a lot of airbrushing. I probably do around about 20 hours on the end of an airbrush a week. So certainly those filters do get a lot of use and certainly clogged up. The trouble with those filters are they are very expensive, and I can't remember off the top of my head when they are, but I know every time I buy them, you have to buy them in sets. So I tend to buy the bigger pack. I think we buy them in packs of 6, and it does break my heart. These ones you can buy. The blue one on top is quite cheap, because that one is only £6.50 for the blue one. The carbon one behind it though is a little bit more, because that's £13.54. Okay, remember members, you'll get 10% as well on this through everything airbrush as well. So certainly well worth going out and invest. So if you are thinking, okay, I've spent a lot of money on an airbrush, I've spent a lot of money on a compressor, and now I'm going to get a spray booth, so I'm going to go off and get a cheap one. I think it could be worth investing in one of these. And certainly if you're going to take the hobby a little bit more seriously, and you might expand and certainly start doing 1/32 scale stuff, you might want a bigger spray booth. So with this, you have the option to linking another one to it. One thing I must say, this second one that goes on isn't the standard one right in front. They do have numbers, and I will quote them. This one over here, the original one, which is what they call the single unit, okay, is called the HS166205, okay? As I said, it's £184 is the recommended retail. It's available from everything airbrush. Members, you'll get 10% like I did on this one, so you'll save a little bit of money, and it comes in around about 165. The next one, this is what they call it, all the same number, but it ends in 206 in a 6 instead of the 5. Okay, it's a little bit more. You're going to pay an extra £10. That's all it is. The reason for that is it's got. Let's break it apart. You might have realised we have actually got. Stick it down that way. We've actually got one of these. Now this is obviously the plug, and it plugs into the next one, and that's how you sort of daisy chain them, because obviously they are. You've got one going in on this side, this one that comes out down here, and then you can daisy chain them and put them together. But as I say, they say you can put 10 in a row with no problem, and it would look very nice having 10 in a row. And certainly from my point of view, we could have guys here all sat next to each other airbrushing and do it like that. I don't, we tend to have them right in front of you, so you have your own little bit of space. But I think for doing it on a semi-professional way of doing it, I think these are great. Alright, I've only had them literally, you know, a week now for testing and things like that. We seem to be doing alright. I've had no problem. They've been running. I left them running originally for a couple of hours just to sort of run them in and everything else like that, and had no problems. It's a good construction. As I say, it's all metal construction actually everywhere. The only bit of plastic you've got is this acrylic sheet on the top. It's a thick, I think that's probably 6mm acrylic on the top. It's nothing cheap. It doesn't flop or bend or anything else like that. It comes with protective plastic coats on it, so don't worry when it turns out it looks white. Take both sides of it off and it'll be nice crystal clear, so you've got plenty of daylight coming in from above and everything else like that. But it's slim design, with the exception of this area at the back. I think you could always, you know, put on a pipe on the back here, no problem. It'll be easy to self-tap into this metal, I would have thought. This fan is absolutely monster on the back. It is the size of that hole, okay, and everything else. But I just generally think for a compact unit that you can put on your desk and you can spray, I think the smells are going to come out. You're never going to get rid of those unless you've got a port on it. But looking at this 2-stage filter, it looks a lot thicker. Well, it is a lot thicker. It's twice as thick as the one for the 300. Okay, and the carbon filter looks very, very tightly woven as well. So it's very, very dense. It's going to catch everything. It's not going to get rid of your smells. So if you are in a situation where you're spraying in the kitchen or certainly in a family area of the house, you're probably going to want to put a hose on the back. Hoses are available. They're around about a tenner, I think. Self-tap it on the back. You can get the ones with the window thing, so it's like a thin slither. You can poke that out of just a little bit of a window and pull the window tight, so you haven't got a gaping window with a round one certainly hanging out and things like that. So all in all, I think personally, so far anyway, it's a great little bit of kit. I've been happy enough to actually buy, you know, these, to have them here in the studio, so I'm sort of going to stand by them, and we'll certainly see how time goes on, how long they last, how long the filters last, and everything else like that, and obviously I'll report back to you. Okay, so there you go, that's your spray booths. Again, been using it now since I recorded that. A little bit noisy is my only point to them. From my point of view of filming, they'll be a little bit too loud. You guys who come here for the actual courses and with the airbrushing, they're not too bad, because it's just the camera tends to be a little bit more sharp, shall we say. So certainly the old camera picks up every little sound, so when it's got a spray booth it locks onto that sound and it's a bit of a nightmare. So they are quite noisy, so if you are in somewhere that you know, noise is an issue, perhaps you might want to look elsewhere, shall we say, or certainly get to hear one first. So as I said, it's a little bit different with the mic. I've got these shotgun mics all over the place, got 3 of them, and they tend to pick up all that noise and really home in on it. And you know, I'm not a sound engineer to be able to filter that out, so you hear it quite raw, so you get an idea of how loud it is. It's definitely louder than the 300 series behind me, no doubt about that, but certainly I don't think it's too bad. I think it sort of exaggerates it a little bit on film, but it is nice the way you could set out and say, look, I only want to spend, you know, 150 quid, I don't want to spend 300 quid. You could go with something like that, okay, then later on you can then buy the add-on for it and have a bigger spray booth than I've got. And to be honest, doing the ship, as I said in that little piece, is that I would prefer to have a situation where I can almost put it in it and then spray it, because it's all going to get drawn in there, and all the nasties out of the actual atmosphere, and obviously you're breathing it in and everything else. I'm not saying as well you have to have a spray booth. Obviously you can use a mask and everything else, but from my point of view, going back in the day before I had one, the dust was always a problem wherever I was. So if you want to get rid of the dust, okay, you could say to your partner, look, I know it's a bit dusty around here, we could solve that problem for the sake of, you know, a couple of £100 and have a spray booth, because it will cut down your dust and your mess and everything else like that. Smells wise, you know, I had somebody the other day ask me about them. Obviously that one we were just looking at is no good unless you've got an exhaust. Okay, you need an exhaust because to get the smells out. But if you are spraying alclads and obviously your enamel paints, lacquer based paints, they are pretty toxic, they are very, quite smelly. So, something like the 300 behind me does a great job. It does get a lot of the smells out. I don't have to worry about it too much. Obviously, if you're looking at something like that, all it's going to do is going to filter out all the nasties, but certainly the smell is still going to come back, and all it's going to do is recycle that smell, so you're not going to have that. So you are going to need an exhaust system on it. But as I said in the piece, you can put on one of these hoses. You get one of them with a thin bit. I think they're a great idea because you can put them out of a window and pull the window to, and you're just left with a very small gap, okay? Instead of having like the round one and you poke out, like a tumble dryer hose, and you try and shut it and you've got this much, and on a windy, rainy day, that's not going to work. So that was my point to it. Anyway, just got to speak about, I'll talk about these in a second. We've got the FW190 SIG finishes on Sunday. That's the 16th of March. So literally, if you have got something that's almost finished, get on with it right now, okay? The next one after that is the Royal Navy Fleet Air Arm SIG. That's running obviously from Saturday tomorrow until the 6th of July, okay? That's the new one. Full details are up on the site. I'm sorry, I can't remember who's leading that one off the top of my head. I haven't got it in front of me. But big thank you to that, and thanks to Kevin as well. Kevin always does our banners, so big thanks to him. So he's done a banner for it as always. Full details of how to put that on your post or wherever you want it available as well. He's done a little description on it. So there we go. These here, just talk about it briefly. The Geek Meet, as we call it, which is when we all meet up on the Sunday. This is the guys' kits that they brought along for us to all fondle, because we all tend to bring kits and everything else and the bits I got here. And they've left them kindly with me, which is very brave of them, because I might end up building them. But basically down here we've got Edard's Da Nang. I'm going to talk about that in my video piece to it when I do the review. I had a great question which came in this week about are they worth it or should I just go and get the Academy one. I answered that, if you're the person who asked me that question, on the review of this, okay? But I've got to edit it and get it done, but I have reviewed it. We've got the Hong Kong Models 1/32 Meteor. I haven't reviewed it yet, but I have had a look. Okay, well, you'll hear what I have to say on that. To say I'm not totally impressed is alright. Okay, we've got a couple of Kitty Hawk models as well. So we've got down here the new Sea Sprite, which I'll be reviewing this week, and we've got the Dolphin. We've got the Wingnut Wings. This is a Salomon. This is the 2-A2-021. I'm rubbish at describing these, but it looks like that. And then also got something really different, which this is Mirror Models from Ireland. This is their US, can you see that there? Just about. Down a bit. This is the US Diamond Wrecker. This is the T969A. Again, you don't get a full, that is a heavy box, that is full of plastic. So I'm going to be reviewing or finish off reviewing these, and they will be up on the site next week as we go along, and certainly in next week's news show, as you'll see it as we make our way through. So there we go, that's it for about this week. Full on show, to say the least, and everything else. So as I said, I'm just going to find a nice home for that to live now once we get the final reveal photos done, which I'll do today, later on today, and then that will be done. Star Destroyer will be in, and then we've got the Hyde and those others, so we've got still got a load of work to look forward to here. In the meantime, I'm going to leave you with Ian Taylor. He's done the Trumpeter, got told off saying that the other day, 1/35 scale. This is the LAV-R, or LAV Recovery Vehicle, I presume that's what they call it, from the recent support vehicle SIG. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with his work, so until next week everybody, happy modelling and take care.